I didn't leave because I stopped loving him. I left because I finally learned to love myself in a way that didn't require me to disappear. It didn't start with a fight. There were no slammed doors, no suitcase thrown down the steps, no neighbors watching from behind their curtains like a bat play. We were not those people. We were the kind who survived by routine, coffee at 7, bills on the first, church on the second Sunday, apologies that looked like flowers on the kitchen counter, and never learned how to say the hard thing out loud. There are marriages that fail with thunder. Ours failed with weather that never changed. He wasn't cruel. He was a good man in the way people use good when they mean safe to have around. He fixed the sink, paid the mortgage, took the trash out without being asked. He hugged me on holidays, and on the day our son called to say the baby had arrived early. He cried then, quietly, surprised that tears were still possible. I rested my hand on his arm and felt pride that had nothing to do with me. That was the trouble. I suppose. There wasn't much that had to do with me. I don't know when exactly I began to shrink. Maybe it was after my mother died, and I cooked a month's worth of casseroles to keep from thinking. And he said, "You're amazing," like I was a machine that had performed well. Maybe it was when I got the promotion and he brought home wine and we celebrated, and then he asked, "You'll still be home by 6, right?" As if success was only acceptable if it was invisible. I made it invisible. I taught the world how to treat me by pretending I needed nothing. Our house gathered years like dust. The hallway photos smiled back. Weddings, graduations, a vacation we borrowed on to afford. I knew every frame, every fingerprint on the glass. I knew how to make our life look intact from a distance, up close. There was the quiet. We could talk for an hour about the water bill, and the neighbor's new dog and the weather over Montana where our son's plane would pass, and not speak once about the knot in my chest that tightened every time. I heard my own voice become helpful instead of human. I didn't want to be rescued. I wanted to be recognized. He thought those were the same when the counselor asked, "What would feeling love look like?" I said, "Being asked how I actually am and waiting for the answer." He blinked like I had spoken a language he hadn't practiced since childhood. He said, "I do ask," and I knew we were in trouble. Because he was telling the truth, he did ask, but he did not stay. He offered questions like umbrellas in the rain, and left before the storm ended. I stayed in the storm alone. There wasn't one last straw. There were 1,000 tiny straws braided into a rope that pulled me out of myself. Inch by patient inch, until one day I woke and couldn't find my name. It was a Tuesday. I made coffee. I sat at the table and listened to the refrigerator hum and the clock argue with the room. He came in, kissed the top of my head the way you greet a favorite chair, and said, "You're quiet today." I said, "I can't hear myself anymore." He touched my shoulder and said, "You're tired. We'll take a trip." He meant well. Trips don't rebuild foundations. That afternoon I drove to the lake with a notebook. The air was clean with cold. Couples walked past with hands that knew the geography of each other's fingers. I wrote one page and tore it out, then another, until I had a sentence that did not tremble. I want a life where I can hear myself speak. I put the sentence on the fridge that night, held by the magnet shaped like an apple our granddaughter painted at school. He read it and said, gently, "I hear you. We'll talk Saturday." Saturday was for lawn work. Saturday was always for something that could be fixed with tools. I didn't wait for Saturday. I began small. I stopped apologizing for being hungry, for being quiet, for wanting the lamp moved closer when I read. I bought fresh flowers on a Wednesday without a holiday attached. I put on the blue dress he once said looked a bit much for church, and wore it to the market because I felt like beauty without an occasion. I ate lunch without checking the time. I walked home slowly, letting the city brush against me like a cat that has decided you are worth knowing. Each small choice returned a piece of my voice, he noticed. He is not unobservant. He is careful in a way that protects the surface and never learned how to swim underneath. He said, "You're different," like a compliment with worry stuck in its throat. I said, "I'm practicing being myself." He nodded, relieved, as if practice implied eventual perfection, as if I might become efficient at being a person. Asterisk in the evenings I set to cups anyway habit, and history do not give up easily. But I poured tea for myself first. I found a chair by the window that belonged to me before anyone asked what was for dinner. I read poetry that didn't end cleanly. I left the dishes for morning. The world continued. No alarms sounded. The sky did not fall. I learned that love is not proven by suffering. It is revealed by presence. On a Sunday, our son brought the baby and the house became holy with small noise. We took turns holding the warm bundle of future. Later, when the door closed and silence returned, I asked him, "When you think about us, what do you see?" He said, "Legacy," and the word was a handsome coat that didn't fit my shoulders. He meant the family we made. I meant the woman I lost. That night I wrote another sentence and left it on the fridge beside the first. "I don't want to disappear to keep this intact." He read it. He took my hand. He said, Tell me how to help. I wanted to hand him a list, ask, listen, stay, ask again. Forgive the mess, say my name like it matters. I wanted to, but I realized I was tired in a way that lists cannot cure. I said, I need room. I need a year to live with myself and see if I am still here. He nodded slowly, as if translating. A year away? A year in a place that's mine, I answered, even if it's small. Even if it's one room with a lamp that's too bright and rent I don't like. I need to be somewhere where every decision is mine, so I can remember how to decide. He thought I meant separation. I meant oxygen. We tried a trial month. I found an apartment above a bakery that woke the street with cinnamon. The landlord gave me 2 keys and a look that said she knew the sound of women arriving to themselves. I bought a second-hand table with scratches that told better stories than new wood. I placed my blue dress in the closet, and it did not apologize to anything for existing. The first night there, I cried without naming it, grief or relief. The body knows more than language. I slept and woke to my own breathing and made coffee at a wrong hour. Because there are no wrong hours when you live alone. I spoke out loud once to the room, hello, and the room did not answer. And I did not feel abandoned. I felt accompanied by the possibility of hearing the rest of the sentence. I texted him every morning. I sent a photo of the sky at whatever time I noticed it. He sent back pictures of the house plants and the dog asleep in the sun. He tried. He asked, how are you? I said, sad and alive. He didn't know what to do with both at once. Most people don single quotes T. in the second month. I laughed in my own kitchen with a friend from years I thought I had misplaced. We burned the first batch of pancakes because we were talking too much. I learned you can burn things and still eat well. I walked home in rain without running. I bought a lamp that was too bright and loved it for telling the truth. Asterisk, sometimes I missed him like you miss a beautiful town where you cannot afford to live. Sometimes I missed the version of myself who knew exactly what the day required and did it without asking if the cost was fair. Sometimes missing is not a sign to return. It is a way to honor the time you were there. He asked to visit. I said yes. He brought lilies. I sneezed and we laughed. He looked around the room as if it were a museum, where touching is allowed but frowned upon. He said, it's small. I said, it's mine. He nodded. He sat at my scratch table and listened while I spoke in paragraphs that had waited years to be heard. He did not interrupt. He cried twice. He said, I want to learn how to stay. I said, staying is not being in the same room. Staying is being willing to be changed by what you hear. He held my gaze and did not look away. That was new. We did not rush. For the first time in our marriage, we did not measure progress by returning to the old shape. We let the shape change. We met for walks instead of deadlines. We told the truth even when it made the room colder for a minute. He learned to ask again after I answered, and I learned to answer before I was asked at month 4. He said, do you think we will make it? I said, we are making something. Whether it will be us again or us, differently, or you there, and me here with kindness. I don't know. But I am making myself. That part I will not unmake. There are victories that look like a return home with banners flying. Mine looked like paying the light bill in my name, and not apologizing for wanting the lamp closer. When I read at 9 months, our granddaughter took her first steps. We stood in the same room and clapped for a miracle that happens to everyone, and still enters the human heart. He looked at me the way men look at shorelines that have always been there, and have finally been seen. After the party he said, I am learning to ask and stay. I said, I know. I see you trying. Praise is not a leash. It is a light. I did not return at 12 months. I did not leave either. I chose the third thing. I kept the apartment and the marriage became 2 addresses and 1 care. That did not require vanishing. Some call that failure. Some call it modern. I call it room. We eat dinner twice a week. We speak like grown people who are in their gentleness. He asks how I am and I answer beyond weather. When grief visits, we set a place for it and pass the salt. When joy arrives, we let it track mud through the house. Last week he said, I love the woman you are. I said, me too. It wasn't defiance. It was gratitude. He smiled and something in the air stopped trying so hard. We walked to the door and he didn't ask if I was coming with him. He said, see you Thursday, and looked at me like Thursday is a gift. I didn't leave because I stopped loving him. I left because love, to be honest, had to include me. Some nights are still lonely. I placed the cups out of habit and then put one away. I sit by the bright lamp and read poems that end in the middle of a sentence, and let me finish them with my breath. I stand at the window and look at the city being a city ambitious, ordinary, full of people learning the difference between staying and staying present. This is what victory looks like in a quiet life. I can hear myself speak. I answer, I stay. And the woman I am does not apologize for existing.